Hmm. Busy
Good
today.
evening.
Evening. Okay. I need to have somewhere with a camera in the middle, don't I? Because it looks like I've got two screens. There's a screen here and a screen there. And if I, yeah. Bum bum bum.
Yeah, my camera's off to the side on top of my laptop screen that I don't really use. So most times people still get to stare at my ear.
I've also just got multiple cameras. I need to get a good one. This one still seems a bit pixelated to me, which is a bit annoying. Like, it's not coping well with light. But I can't really. I've got a camera built it. I've got, what is it called? I've got this camera as well. Oh, sorry, that's a built-in camera. It's not as. That's just not that good.
Yeah.
Oh, who
I've
gets?
normally got my video off because I've got a terrible internet connection. But
Oh, I see. Yeah, and I've got this camera as well, which is basically identical. Well, it seems to cope better at night. Yeah, that's
better than the first one.
I think during the day the other one's better, but let's get myself centered. I keep forgetting it's recorded as well from the start, so I need to say hello to catch up crew, I guess. Entertain them.
I was in on my own initially and realised it was being recorded. I did consider abusing the privilege, but we normally get things like Katie piano, which is quite lovely. So anything I did was going to kind of spoil that, so I decided not to.
I like this camera to be zoomed out a bit, but it's quite good. That's it, Miss Frankie.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
Good, good.
Pretty good. Okay.
Everyone's very quiet. Hey, Laura.
Hello.
Hey, Andromeda. Hey, Duncan. Who else have we got? Who else have we got? Michael. Hello.
Andrada's going for matching cup and clothing combo again.
Oh my God. Andrada, you icon.
Rocking that.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize they were going to match. I just wanted a big mug of tea.
Is my background flickering?
Yeah, it is a bit.
Strange.
Quite cool.
Oh, I mean, I'll go for the strobe effect.
Make it a disco.
Yeah.
Hi, Katie. Hi, Nick. They're looking cute as hell, as per bloody usual.
I stole Nick's fluffy top.
This is not an unusual thing.
I mean, usually I have to give it back fairly instantly.
But you're on camera now, so...
Usually you're asked to give it back fairly instantly. You very rarely do.
Oh, no, I always do. Always. Very good.
I would definitely watch the sitcom that was just Kate and Nick and Katie just kind of lovingly bickering and then cuddling each other. I would watch that.
We're certainly much better behaved when you're watching.
I mean, you know, no need on my account.
You have to pay extra for less well-behaved behaviour.
It's on your OnlyFans. I can make that reference now because now I know what an OnlyFans is. I'm getting younger and hipper by the day.
I believe you.
Of course you are.
Hi, Martin. Hi, sweetie.
Oh,
I'm going to come and be in your house very soon.
yes, you are.
Did you know that?
I'd forgotten.
You'd heard it on the grapevine.
Hmm.
Are you coming to Scotland again and not coming to see us again?
That, yeah, that sort of is what's happening, I'm afraid.
I mean, Martin's excellent, but like, how many Glasgow fans do you have?
Life in my heart.
I mean, surely if you put like me and Nick and Malcolm and Ian and Bina and Kitty and Rory all together, aren't we like just a little bit as good as Martin?
I mean,
Wow.
I would love
Katie
I would love
McAllister turning up the emotional blackmail mercilessly.
Who'd have
Are you
thought?
allowed to put all of those people together?
Who'd have thought it, Nick? Who'd have thought it?
Shameless. Shameless. But would you take me for ice cream?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would make you ice cream, Frankie, of whatever flavour you wanted.
Martin, are you hearing this?
You would. And cinnamon buns.
Whoa, no cinnamon buns. Now, remember, I have an exclusivity agreement with Zach for cinnamon buns.
She'd bake cinnamon buns for anyone else who was here.
Hmm?
She'd make cinnamon buns for anyone else who was here.
That's true. I could probably get a hall pass from Zach for Katie cinnamon buns. I think that would probably be okay. How's everyone doing? How are you doing, Michael? You're making lots of very expressive gestures.
Yes, because you know.
You're an expressive gentleman.
Yeah,
Are you wearing a shirt? You look very smart.
Yeah, you found me on one of the few days when I'm not wearing a t-shirt with a terrible pun on it.
I'm sort of kind of instinctively like peering to see if I can like see more of your outfit. I don't think that's how technology works.
No, it's not how technology works, and it's really quite boring. It's just slightly smarter than usual. Yeah.
He's got suspenders beneath the level. Tell.
I have tomorrow off.
Nice. What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to go to the doctors. Well, to see my therapist. And then I'm going to do some work on my thesis.
Nice.
Yeah. But next week it's a proper holiday. Like I've got all next week off for a proper holiday.
Proper holiday.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but the exciting thing is tomorrow doesn't count into my limited holiday/sick days.
Nice.
The story is we're just too many students on this one ward this week. And we only have one computer for 4 students, and like the doctor's room is just too crowded. And so one of the doctors was like, how does everyone feel about each of you taking one day off this week? Like we were way too many students on Monday, and then she was like, every one of us takes one day off like the other 4 days.
And were you like, I mean, that's going to be a real wrench, but I suppose for the good of the collective, I'll take that bullet.
Exactly. That's how, all of us reacted. They're very heroic.
Oh wow, I'm in awe.
I also said, like, if any of you don't want to do that, I'm like, I'll take the bullet and take another day off, you know.
You're the hero we need right now.
Yeah.
How are we doing for time, everybody? By the way, is it story time?
It's story time.
Is it story time? I think it might be story time. Well. This is going to be so great. This book just gets better and better and better, and it just keeps getting better. This session.
Where have we gotten to? I'm not caught up. Sorry.
Wanted stolen was the last line.
Sorry?
What's that?
She must have wanted to get her cheese stolen was the last line.
So they've the squad have just decided that they are going to go off and infiltrate the keep disguised as women, and so that is what they are about to do.
Okay.
Now. This is going to be goddamn great. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. The mist was still thick as they made their way down through the woods to the path by the river. Polly's skirt kept catching at the brambles. It must have done so before she joined up, but she'd never noticed it so much. Now it was seriously hindering her. She reached up and absent-mindedly adjusted the socks, which she'd separated to use as padding elsewhere. She was too skinny, that was the trouble. The ringlets had been useful there. They said, girl. In their absence, she had to rely on a scarf and a socks change. All right, she whispered, as the ground levelled out. Remember, no swearing. Giggle, don't snigger. No belching. No weapons either. They can't be that stupid in there. Anyone brought a weapon? There was a shaking of heads. Did you bring a weapon, Magda? No, Polly. No item of any sort with a certain weapon-like quality? Polly insisted. No, Polly, said Tonka demurely. Anything perhaps with an edge? Oh, you mean this? Yes, Magda. Well, a woman can carry a knife, can't she? It's a sabre, Magda. You're trying to hide it, but it's a sabre. I'm only using it like a knife, Polly. It's 3 feet long, Magda. Size isn't important, Polly. No one believes that. Leave it behind a tree, please. That is an order. Oh, all right. After a while, Shufti, who had appeared to be thinking deeply, said, I can't understand why she didn't just tie up her own garter. Shuf, what the hell? Tonka began. Heck, Polly corrected her. And you're talking to Betty, remember? What the heck are you talking about, Betty? Said Tonka, rolling her eyes. Well, the song, of course. And you don't have to lie down to tie a garter in any case. It'd be more difficult, said Shufti. It's all a bit silly. No one said anything for a while. It was perhaps easy to see why Shufti was on her quest. You're right, said Polly eventually. It's a silly song. A very silly song, Tonka agreed. They all agreed. It was a silly song. They stepped out onto the river path. Ahead of them, a small group of women were hurrying round the bend in the track. Automatically, the squad looked up. The keep grew out of the sheer cliff. It was hard to see where the unhewn rock ended and the ancient masonry began. They could see no windows. From here it was just a wall extending to the sky. No way in, it said. No way out. In this wall are few doors, and they close with finality. This close to the deep, slow river, the air was bone-chillingly cold, and grew colder the higher they looked. Around the curve they could see the little rock shelf where the back door was, and the women ahead of them talking to a guard. This is not going to work, said Shufti under her breath. They're showing him some papers. Anyone brought theirs? No? The soldier had looked up and was watching the girls, with that blank official expression of someone who was not looking for excitement or adventure in his life. Keep moving, murmured Polly. If it all gets really bad, burst into tears. That's disgusting, said Tonka. Their treacherous feet were taking them closer all the time. Polly kept her eyes downwards, as was proper in an unmarried woman. There would be others watching, she knew it. They'd probably be bored, they might not be expecting any trouble, but up on those walls there were eyes fixed on her. They reached the guard. Just inside the narrow stone doorway, there was another one, lounging in the shadow. "Papers," said the guard. "Oh, sir, I have none," said Polly. She'd been working out the speech on the way down through the wood. War, fears of invasion, people fleeing, no food. You didn't have to make things up, you just had to reassemble reality. "I had to leave." "Oh, right," the guard interrupted. "No papers? No problem. If you just step in and see my colleague, nice of you to join us." He stood aside and waved a hand towards the dark entrance. Mystified, Polly stepped inside with the others following. Behind them, the door swung shut. Inside, she saw that they were in a long passage with many slits in the walls to rooms on either side. Lamplight shone from the slits. She could see shadows beyond them. Bowmen concealed there could turn anyone trapped in here into mince. At the end of the corridor, another door swung open. It led into a small room in which there sat, at a desk, a young man in a uniform Polly didn't recognise, although it had a captain's insignia. Standing to one side was a much, much larger man in the same uniform, or possibly two uniforms stitched together. He had a sword. There was that about him. When this man held a sword, it was clearly being held, and held by him. The eye was drawn to it. Even Jade would have been impressed. "Good morning, ladies," said the captain. "No papers, eh? Take off your scarves, please." And that's it, thought Polly, as the bottom of her stomach dropped away. And we thought we were being clever. There was nothing for it but to obey. "Ah, you'll tell me your hair was shaved off as a punishment for fraternising with the enemy, eh?" said the man, barely looking up. "Except for you," he added to Eagerina. "Didn't feel like fraternising with any enemies? Something wrong with decent Zlobenian boys?" No," said Eagerina. Now the captain gave them a bright little smile. "Gentlemen, let's not mess about, shall we? You walk wrong. We do watch, you know. You walk wrong and you stand wrong. You," he pointed to Tonka, "have got a bit of shaving foam under one ear. And you, sir, are either deformed or you've tried the old trick of sticking a pair of socks down your vest." Crimson with embarrassment and humiliation, Polly hung her head. "Getting in or out disguised as washerwomen," said the captain, shaking his head. "Everyone outside this stupid country knows that one, lads, but for most of them make more of an effort than you boys. Well, for you the war is over. This place has got big, big dungeons, and I don't mind telling you you're probably going to be better off in here than outside. Well, what do you want?" Shufti had raised a hand. "Can I show you something?" she said. Polly didn't turn, but watched the captain's face as, beside Polly, cloth rustled. She couldn't believe it. Shufti was raising her skirt. "Oh," said the captain, sitting back in his chair. His face went red. There was an explosion from Tonka, but it was an explosion of tears. They came out accompanied by a long, mournful wail as she threw herself to the floor. "We walked so far. We lay in ditches to hide from soldiers. There's no food. We want to work. You called us boys. Why are you so cruel?" Polly knelt down and half picked her up, patting her on the back as Tonka's shoulders heaved with the force of her sobs. "It's been very hard for all of us," she said to the red-faced captain. "If you can take him down, I can garrote the other one with my apron strings," whispered Tonka in her ear between howls. "Have you seen everything you wish to see?" said Polly to the blushing captain, every syllable tinkling with ice. "Yes, no, yes, please," said the captain, giving the guard the agonised glance of a man who knows he's going to be the laughingstock of the whole fort inside the hour. "Once was quite... I mean, I've seen... Look, I'm completely satisfied. Private, go and fetch one of the women from the laundry. I am so sorry, ladies. I have a job to do." "Do you enjoy it?" said Polly, still freezing. Yes, said the captain hurriedly. I mean, no, yes, we have to be careful. Ah. The big soldier had returned, trailing a woman. Polly stared. Some new volunteers, said the captain, waving vaguely towards the squad. I'm sure Mrs. Enid will have some use for them. Certainly, Captain, said the woman, curtsying demurely. Polly still stared. Off you go, ladies, said the captain. And if you're hard workers, Mrs. Enid will, I'm sure, give you a pass, so as we don't have this trouble again. Shufti put both hands on his desk, leaned towards him and said, "Boo." His chair hit the wall. I may not be clever, she said to Polly, but I'm not stupid. But Polly was still staring at Lieutenant Blouse. He'd curtsied surprisingly well. The soldier escorted them along a tunnel which opened onto a ledge overlooking what was either a cave or a room. It was at that level in the keep where there was not much difference. This wasn't a laundry, but clearly some hot, damp afterlife for those who required punishment with extra scrubbing. Steam rolled across the ceiling, condensed and dripped onto a floor that was already running with water. And it went on forever, washtub after washtub. Women moved like ghosts through the drifting, tumbling clouds of fog. There you go, ladies, he said, and slapped Blouse on the rump. See you tonight then, Daphne. Oh, yes, trilled Blouse. 5 o'clock then, said the soldier, and ambled off down the corridor. Daphne, said Polly when the man had gone. My nom de guerre, said Blouse. I still haven't found a way out of the lower areas, but the guards have all the keys, and I shall have his key in my hand by 5:30. Pardon? I think Magda just bit her tongue, said Polly. Her? Oh, yes. Well done for staying in character. Polly, said Polly. Good choice of name, said Blouse, leading the way down some steps. It's a good, common, maidservant-y sort of name. Yes, that's what I thought, said Polly gravely. Sergeant Jackram not with you, then? Said the lieutenant with a trace of nervousness. No, sir. He said he was going to lead a charge on the main gate, sir, if we sent him a signal. I hope he doesn't try without one. Good heavens, the man's mad, said Blouse. Splendid effort from the lads, though. Well done. You definitely pass for women to the casual observer. Coming from you, Daphne, that is a big compliment, said Polly, thinking, gosh, I'm really good at keeping a straight face. But you didn't need to come after me, said Blouse. I'm sorry I couldn't get a signal to you, but Mrs. Enid allowed me to stay overnight, you see. The guards don't do so many checks at night, so I made use of my time to look for ways into the upper keep. All gated or rather heavily guarded, I'm afraid. However, Private Hope Fidel has taken rather a shine to me. Well done, sir, said Polly. Sorry, I want to be clear, sir, said Tonka. You have a date with a guard. Yes, and I'll suggest we go somewhere dark, and then when I've got what I want, I shall break his neck, said Blouse. Isn't that going a bit far on a first date? Said Tonka. Sir, did you have any trouble getting in? Said Polly. This had been nagging at her. It seemed so unfair. No, not at all. I just smiled and wiggled my hips and they waved me through. What about you? Oh, we had a little bit, said Polly. It was a bit it was a bit awkward for a moment or two. What did I tell you? Said Blouse triumphantly. It's all down to thespian ability, but you are plucky lads to try it. Come and meet Mrs. Enid, a very loyal lady. The brave womenfolk of Borogravia are on our side. And indeed, there was a picture of the Duchess in the alcove that served the laundry mistress for an office. Mrs. Enid wasn't a particularly large woman, but she had forearms like jade, a soaking wet apron, and the most mobile mouth Polly had ever seen. Her lips and tongue drew out every word like a big shape in the air. The laundresses, in a cavern full of hissing steam, echoes, falling water, and the thud of wet clothes on stone, watched lips when ears were overwhelmed. When she was listening, her mouth moved all the time too, like someone trying to dislodge a piece of nut from a tooth. She wore her sleeves rolled up above her elbows. She listened impassively as Blouse introduced the squad. "I see," she said. "Right. You leave your lads here with me, sir. You ought to get back to the pressing room." When Blouse had bounced and wobbled back through the steam, Mrs. Enid looked them all up and down, and then straight through. "Lads," she grunted. "Ha! That's all he knows, eh? For a woman to wear the clothes of a man is an abomination in the eyes of Nuggin." "But we're dressed as women, Mrs. Enid," said Polly meekly. Mrs. Enid's mouth moved ferociously. Then she folded her arms. It was like a barricade going up against all that was ungodly. "It's not right," she said. "I've got a son and a husband prisoner in this place, and I'm working myself to the bone for the enemy just so as I can keep an eye on them. They're going to invade, you know. It's amazing what we hear down there. So what good's rescuing your men going to do when we're all under the heel of the Slabenian hand-painted clog, eh?" "Slabenia will not invade," said Wazza confidently. "The Duchess will see to it. Be not afraid." Wazza got given the sort of look she always got when someone heard her for the first time. "Been praying, have you?" said Mrs. Enid kindly. "No, just listening," said Wazza. "Nuggin talks to you, does he?" "No, Nuggin is dead, Mrs. Enid," said Wazza. Polly took Wazza's matchstick-thin arm and said, "Excuse us a moment, Mrs. Enid." She hustled the girl behind a huge water-driven clothes mangle. It heaved and clanked as a background to their conversation. "Wazza, this is getting..." Polly's native tongue had no word for freaky, but if she had known about the word, she would have welcomed its inclusion. "Strange. You're worrying people. You can't just go around saying that God is dead." "Gone, then. Dwindled, I think," said Wazza, her brow furrowing. "No longer with us." "We still get the abominations." Wazza tried to concentrate. "No, they're not real. They're like echoes. Dead voices in an ancient cave, bouncing back and forth. The words changing, making nonsense. Like flags that were used for signals, but now just flap in the wind." Wazza's eyes went unfocused and her voice altered, became more adult, more certain. "And they came from no God. There is no God here." "So where do they come from?" "From your fear. They come from the part that hates the other, that will not change. They come from the sum of all your pettiness and stupidity and dullness. You fear tomorrow, and you've made fear your God. The Duchess knows this." The water mangle creaked onwards. Around Polly the boilers hissed, water gushed in the runnels. The air was loaded with the smells of soap and damp cloth. "I don't believe in the Duchess either," said Polly. "That was just trickery in the woods. Anyone would look around. It doesn't mean I believe in her." "That doesn't matter, Polly. She believes in you." "Really?" Polly glanced around the steaming, dripping cave. "Is she here then? Has she graced us with her presence?" Wazza had no concept of sarcasm. She nodded. "Yes." "Yes." Polly looked behind her. "Did you just say yes?" she demanded. "Yes," said Wazza. Yes. Polly relaxed. Oh, it's an echo. This is a cave, after all. Which doesn't explain why my voice doesn't come bouncing back. I mean, Alice, she said thoughtfully. Yes, Polly, said Wazza. I think it would be a really good idea if you don't talk too much about this to the others, she said. People don't mind believing in, gods and so on, but they get very nervous if you tell them they're showing up. She's not going to show up, is she? The person you don't believe in, said Wazza, showing a flash of spirit. I'm not saying she doesn't exist, said Polly weakly. I just don't believe in her, that's all. She's very weak, said Wazza. I hear her crying in the night. Polly sought for further information in the pinched-up face, hoping that in some way Wazza was making fun of her. But nothing but puzzled innocence looked back. Why does she cry? She said. The prayers. They hurt her. Polly spun round when something touched her shoulder. It was Tonka. Mrs. Enid says we're to get to work, she said. She says the guards come round and check. Hold on. Let me adjust. It was women's work, and therefore monotonous, back-breaking and social. It had been a long time since Polly had got her hands in a washtub, and the ones here were long wooden troughs where 20 women could work at once. Arms on either side of her squeezed and pummeled, wrung out garments and slapped them into the rinsing trough behind them. Polly joined in and listened to the buzz of conversation around her. It was gossip, but bits of information floated in it like bubbles in the washtub. A couple of guards had taken liberties, that is, more than had already been taken, and had apparently been flogged for it. This caused much comment around the tub. Apparently some big milord from Ankh-Morpork was in charge of things and had ordered it. He was some kind of wizard, said the woman opposite. They said he could see things happening everywhere and lived on raw meat. They said he had secret eyes. Of course, everyone knew that the city was the home of abominations. Polly, industriously rubbing a shirt on a washboard, thought about this. And thought about a lowland buzzard in this upland country, and some creature so fast and stealthy that it was only a suggestion of shadow. She took a spell on the copper boilers, ramming the stewing garments under the bubbling surface, and noted that in this place, without weapons of any sort, she was using a heavy stick about 3 feet long. She enjoyed the work, in a dumb kind of way. Her muscles did all the necessary thinking, leaving her brain free. No one knew for sure that the Duchess was dead. It more or less didn't matter. But Polly was sure of one thing. The Duchess had been a woman. Just a woman, not a goddess. Oh, people prayed to her in the hope that their pleas would be gift-wrapped and sent on to Nuggan, but that gave her no right to mess with the heads of people like Wazza, who had enough trouble as it was. Gods could do miracles. Duchesses posed for pictures. Out of the corner of her eye, Polly saw a line of women taking large baskets from a platform at the end of the room and stepping out through another doorway. She dragged Igorina away from the wash trough and told her to join them. And notice everything, she added. Yes, Corp, said Igorina. Because I know one thing, said Polly, waving at the piles of damp linen, and it's that this lot will need the breeze. She went back to work, occasionally joining in the chatter for the look of the thing. It wasn't hard. The washerwomen kept away from some subjects, particularly ones like husbands and sons. But Polly picked up clues here and there. Some were in the keep. Some were probably dead. Some were out there somewhere. Some of the older women wore the Motherhood Medal, awarded to women whose sons had died for Borogravia. The bastard metal was corroding in the damp atmosphere, and Polly wondered if the medals had arrived in a letter from the Duchess, with her signature printed on the bottom and the son's name squeezed up tight to fill the space. "We honour and congratulate you, Mrs. L. Lapchick, of Well-Laid Mons, on the death of your son, Otto Piotr Hans Lapchick, on 25th of June at blank." The place was always censored in case it brought aid and comfort to the enemy. It astonished Polly to find that the cheap medals and thoughtless words did, in a way, bring aid and comfort to the mothers. Those in Mons who had received them wore them with a sort of fierce, indignant pride. She wasn't sure she trusted Mrs. Enid very much. She had a son and a husband up in the cells, and she'd had a chance to weigh up Blouse. She'd be asking herself, what's more likely, that he gets them all out and keeps them safe, or that there's going to be an almighty mess which might well harm us all? And Polly couldn't blame her if she went with the evidence. She was aware of someone talking to her. She said. "Look at this, will you?" said Shufti, waving a sodden pair of men's long pants at her. "They keep putting the colours in with the whites." "Well, so what?" "Those are enemy long johns," said Polly. "Yes, but there's such a thing as doing it properly. Look, they put in this red pair and all the others go in pink." "And? I used to love pink when I was about 7. Footnote. It is an established fact that, despite everything society can do, girls of 7 are magnetically attracted to the colour pink. "But pale pink? On a man?" Polly looked at the next tub for a moment and patted Shufti on the shoulder. "Yes, it is very pale, isn't it? You'd better find a couple more red items," she said. "But that'd make it even worse," Shufti began. "That was an order, soldier," Polly whispered in her ear. "And add some starch." "How much?" "All you can find." Igorina returned. Igorina had good eyes. Polly wondered if they'd ever belonged to someone else. She gave Polly a wink and held up a thumb. It was, to Polly's relief, one of her own. In the huge ironing room, only one person was working at the long boards when Polly, taking advantage of the temporary absence of Mrs. Enid, hurried in. It was Daphne. All the rest of the women were gathered round as if they were watching a demonstration. And they were. "The collar, do you see?" said Lieutenant Blouse, flourishing the big, steaming, charcoal-filled iron. "Then the sleeve cuffs, and finally the sleeves. Do one front half at a time. You should hang them immediately, but, and here's a useful tip, don't iron them completely dry. It's really a matter of practice, but..." Polly stared in fascinated wonder. She'd hated ironing. "Daphne, could I have a word?" she said during a pause. Blouse looked up. Polly," she said. "Oh, yes, of course." "It's amazing what Daphne knows about pleat lines," said a girl in awe. "And press cloths." "I am amazed," said Polly. Blouse handed the iron to the girl. "There you are, Dimfer," she said generously. "Remember, always iron the wrong side first, and only ever do the wrong side on dark linens. Common mistake. Coming, Polly." Polly kicked her heels for a while outside, and one of the girls came up with a big pile of fresh-smelling ironing. She saw Polly and leaned close as she went past. "We all know he's a man," she said, "but he's having such fun, and he irons like a demon." "Sir, how do you know about ironing?" said Polly when they were back in the washing room. "Had to do my own laundry back at HQ," said Blouse. "Couldn't afford a gal, and the batman was a strict Nugganite and said it was girls' work. So I thought, well, it can't be hard, otherwise we wouldn't leave it to women. They really aren't very good here. You know, they put the colours and the whites together." Sir, you know you said you were going to steal a gate key off a guard and break his neck, said Polly. Indeed. Do you know how to break a man's neck, sir? I read a book on martial arts, Perks, said Blouse, a little severely. But you haven't actually done it, sir. Well, no. I was at HQ, and you're not allowed to practice on real people, Perks. You see, the person whose neck you want to break will have a weapon at that moment, and you, sir, won't, said Polly. I have tried out the basic principle on a rolled-up blanket, said Blouse reproachfully. It seemed to work very well. Was the blanket struggling and making loud gurgling noises and kicking you in the socks, sir? The socks? Said Blouse, puzzled. In fact, I think your other idea would be better, sir, said Polly hurriedly. Yes, my other idea. Which one was that, exactly? The one where we escape from the wash house via the clothes drying area, sir, after silently disabling 3 guards, sir. There's a kind of moving room down the corridor over there, sir, which gets winched all the way to the roof. 2 guards go up there with the women, sir, and there's another guard up on the roof. Acting together, we'd take out each unsuspecting guard, sir, which would be more certain than you against an armed man, with all due respect, sir, and that would leave us very well positioned to go anywhere in the keep via the rooftops, sir. Well done, sir. There was a pause. Did I go into all that detail? Said Blouse. Oh, no, sir. You shouldn't have to, sir. Sergeants and corporals deal with the fine detail. Officers are there to see the big picture. Oh, absolutely. And how big was this particular picture? Said Blouse, blinking. Oh, very big, sir. A very big picture indeed, sir. Ah, said Blouse, and straightened up and assumed what he considered to be the expression of one with panoramic vision. Some of the ladies here used to work in the upper keep, sir, when it was ours, Polly went on quickly. Anticipating your order, sir, I had the squad engage them in light conversation about the layout of the place, sir. Being aware of the general thrust of your strategy, sir, I think I have found a route to the dungeons. She paused. It had been good flanneling, she knew. It was almost worthy of Jackram. She'd larded it with as many sirs as she dared, and she was very proud of anticipating your order. She hadn't yet heard Jackram use it, but with a certain amount of care it was an excuse to do almost anything. General thrust was pretty good too. Dungeons, said Blouse thoughtfully, momentarily losing sight of the big picture. In fact, I thought I said, yes, sir, because, sir, if we can get a lot of the lads out of the dungeon, sir, you'll be in command inside the enemy citadel, sir. Blouse grew another inch and then sagged again. Of course, there are some very senior officers here, all of them senior to me. Yes, sir, said Polly, well on the way to graduating from the Sergeant Jackram School of Outright Rupert Management. Perhaps we'd better try to let the enlisted men out first, sir. We don't want to expose the officers to enemy fire. It was shameless and stupid, but now the light of battle was in Blouse's eyes. Polly decided to fan it, just in case. Your leadership has really been a great example to us, sir, she said. Has it? Oh, yes, sir. No officer could have led a finer bunch of men, Perks, said Blouse. Probably they have, sir, said Polly. And what man could dare hope for such an opportunity, eh? Said Blouse. Our names will go down in the history books. Well, mine will, obviously, and I shall jolly well see to it that you chaps get a mention too. And who knows, perhaps I may win the highest accolade that a gallant officer may obtain. What's that, sir? Said Polly dutifully. Having either a foodstuff or an item of clothing named after one, said Blouse, his face radiant. General Frock got both, of course, the frock coat and beef frock. Of course, I could never aspire that high. He looked down bashfully. But I have to say, Perks, that I have devised several recipes just in case. So we'll be eating a blouse one day, sir, said Polly. She was watching the baskets being stacked. Possibly, if I may dare hope, said Blouse. My favourite is a sort of pastry ring, do you see, filled with cream and soaked in rum. That's a rum baba, sir, said Polly absently. Tonka and the others were watching the stacked baskets too. It's been done? Afraid so, sir. How about a dish of liver and onions? It's called liver and onions, sir. Sorry, said Polly, trying not to lose concentration. Well, it has struck me that some dishes are named after people when really they just made a little change to a basic recipe. We must go now, sir. Now or never, sir. What? Oh, right. Yes, we must go. It was a military manoeuvre hitherto unrecorded. The squad, coming from different directions on Polly's signal, arrived at the baskets just ahead of the women who'd proposed to take them up, grabbed the handles and advanced. Only then did she realise that probably no one else wanted the job, and the women were only too happy to let idiot newcomers take the strain. The baskets were big and the wet washing was heavy. Wazza and Igorina could barely lift one basket between them. A couple of soldiers were waiting by the door. They looked bored and paid little attention. It was a long walk to the elevator. Polly hadn't been able to picture it when it had been described. You had to see it. It really was just a big open box of heavy timbers attached to a thick rope, which ran up and down a sort of chimney in the rock. When they were aboard, one of the soldiers hauled on a much thinner rope that disappeared up into the darkness. The other one lit a couple of candles, whose only apparent role was to make the darkness more gloomy. "No fainting now, girls," he said. His mate chuckled. 2 of them and 6 of us, Polly thought. The copper stick banged against her leg as she moved, and she knew for a fact that Tonka was limping because she had strapped a washing dolly under her dress. That was for serious washerwomen. It was a long stick with what looked like a 3-legged milking stool on the end of it, the better for agitating clothes in a big cauldron of boiling water. You could probably smash a skull with it. The stone walls dropped past as the platform rose. "How thrilling!" trilled Daphne. "And this goes all the way up through your big castle, does it?" "Oh, no, miss. Got to go up through the rock first, miss. Lots of old workings and everything before we get that high." "Oh, I thought we were in the castle already." Blouse gave Polly a worried look. "No, miss. There's just the wash house down there 'cause of the water. Ha! It's a climb and a half even to the lower cellars. Lucky for you there's this elevator, eh?" "Wonderful, Sergeant," said Blouse, and allowed Daphne back. "How does it work?" "It's corporal, miss," said the string puller, touching his forelock. "It's pulled up and down by prisoners in a treadmill, miss." "Oh, how horrid!" "Oh, no, miss. It's quite humane. If you're free after work, I could take you up and show you the mechanism." "That would be lovely, Sergeant." Polly put her hand over her eyes. Daphne was a disgrace to womanhood. The elevator rumbled upwards quite slowly. Mostly they passed raw rock, but sometimes there were ancient gratings or areas of masonry, suggestive of tunnels long ago blocked. There was a jerk, and the platform stopped moving. One of the soldiers swore under his breath, but the corporal said, "Don't be afraid, ladies. This often happens." "Why should we be afraid?" said Polly. "Well, because we're hanging by a rope 100 feet up the shaft, and lifting machinery's thrown a cog." "Again?" said the other soldier. "Nothing works properly round here." "Sounds like a good reason to be," said Igorina. "How long will it take to repair?" said Tonka. "Ha! Last time it happened we were stuck for an hour." Too long, Polly thought. Too many things could happen. She looked up through the beams in the roof. The square of daylight was a long way up. We can't wait, she said. Oh dear, who will save us? Daphne quavered. We'll have to find a way to pass the time, eh? Said one of the guards. Polly sighed. That was one of those phrases like, well, looky what we have here, that meant things were only going to get a lot worse. You know how it is, ladies, the guard went on. You're menfolk away and all. It's as bad for us too. I can't remember when I last kissed my wife. And I can't remember when I last kissed his wife either, said the corporal. Tonka jumped up, caught a beam and chinned herself to the top of the box. The elevator shook and somewhere a piece of rock dislodged and crashed down the shaft. Hey, you can't do that, said the corporal. Where does it say? Said Tonka. Polly, there's one of those filled-in tunnels here, only most of the stones have been knocked out. We could get in easily. You can't get out. We'll get into trouble, said the corporal. Polly pulled his sword out of his scabbard. The space was too crowded to do much with it except threaten, but she had it, not him. It made a huge difference. You're already in trouble, she said. Please don't force me to make it worse. Let's get out of here. Is that okay, Daphne? Yes, of course, said Blouse. The other guard laid a hand on his own sword. Okay, girls, this has gone, he began, and then slumped. Shufti lowered her copper stick. I hope I didn't hit him too hard, she said. Who cares? Come on, I can give you all a hand up, said Tonka. Igorina, could you have a look at him and... Shufti began nervously. He's a man and he's groaning, said Tonka from above. That's good enough for me. Come on. The lone guard watched as the others were woman-handled onto the beams. Excuse me, he said to Polly as she helped Blouse up. Yes? What? Would you mind giving me a wallop on the back of the head? He said, looking wretched. Only it looks like I didn't put up a fight against a bunch of women. Why don't you put up a fight? Said Polly, narrowing her eyes. We're only a bunch of women. I'm not crazy, said the guard. Here, let me, said Igorina, producing her stick. Blows to the head are potentially harmful and should not be undertaken lightly. Turn around, sir. Remove your helmet, please. Would 20 minutes unconsciousness be okay? Yes, thanks very much. The guard folded up. I really hope I didn't hurt the other one, moaned Shufti from above. He's swearing, said Polly, removing his sword. That sounds like he's okay. She handed up the candles and then was hauled onto the trembling roof of the elevator. When she had a firm footing in the mouth of the tunnel, she found a sliver of stone and stamped it hard into the space between the shaft wall and the wooden frame, which shook. It wasn't going anywhere for a while. Tonka and Lofty were already investigating the tunnel. By candlelight, it looked like good masonry beyond the clumsy attempt at walling it up. It must be cellars, said Tonka. I reckon they must have made the shaft not long ago and just walled up where it cut through. Could have done a better job too. Cellars are close to dungeons, said Polly. Now, pinch out one candle because then we'll have light for twice as long, and then... Perks, a word, please, said Blouse. Over here. Yes, sir. When they were standing a little apart from the rest of the squad, Blouse lowered his voice and said, I don't wish to discourage initiative, Perks, but what are you doing? Anticipating your orders, sir. Anticipating them? Yes, sir. Ah, right. This is still small picture stuff, is it? Exactly, sir. Then my orders, Perks, are to proceed with speed and caution to release the prisoners. Well done, sir. We'll go through this crypt, said Igorina, looking around. The candle blew out. Somewhere ahead of them, in darkness absolute and velvet thick, stone moved on stone. I wonder why this passage was sealed up, said the voice of Blouse. I think I've stopped wondering why it was sealed up in such a hurry, said Tonka. I wonder who tried to open it, said Polly. There was a crash of, as it might be, a heavy slab falling off an ornate tomb. It could have been half a dozen other things, but somehow that was the image that sprang to mind. The dead air moved a little. "I don't want to worry anyone," said Shufti, "but I can hear the sound of sort of feet, sort of dragging." Polly remembered the man lighting the candles. He'd dropped the bundle of matches into the brass saucer of the candlestick, hadn't he? Moving her hand slowly, she groped for them. "If you didn't want to worry anyone," came the voice of Tonka from the dry, thick darkness, "why the hell did you just tell us that?" Polly's fingers found a sliver of wood. She raised it to her nose and sniffed the sulphurous smell. "I've got one match," she said. "I'm going to try to light the candle again. Everyone look for a way out. Ready?" She sidled to the invisible wall. Then she scratched the match down the stone, and yellow light filled the crypt. Someone whimpered. Polly stared, candle forgotten. The match went out. "Okay," said the subdued voice of Tonka. "Walking dead people. So?" "The one near the archway with the late General Pullover," said Blouse. "I have his book on the art of defence." "Best not to ask him to autograph it, sir," said Polly, as the squad bunched together. There was the whimpering again. It seemed to come from where Polly remembered Wazza standing. She heard her praying. There were no words that she could make out, just a fierce and urgent whispering. "Maybe these washing sticks can slow them down a bit," Shufti quavered. "More than being dead already," said Eagerina. "No," a voice whispered, and light filled the crypt.
You can't stop there.
Oh, I need.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, Frankie, how could you?
Like this.
Definitely not okay.
I totally forgot about the zombies.
Sorry. Very
You
sorry.
will be.
You're not.
Not even a little bit.
You enjoyed it too much.
You know, we could have a rest tomorrow if you want. You know, you should probably take a rest, right? You don't want to know what happens next.
I might mess with the anniversary party though, and you know, we don't want to mess with that.
True, it's true. Yeah, that's true. I might be sort of 5 minutes late tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit of a rough squeeze. Emma's taking me on a date. She's taking me to see the new BTS movie, and it finishes at like 20 to 9. So I'm going to race back like the wind. So I think that I should be fine because it's not far down the road, but I might be a little bit out of breath and tear stained potentially.
Because of your rough squeeze with Emma.
You know, we can plan to start a little bit late so that you can take a few minutes to tend to your tears.
Absolutely not. If I need to tend to my tears, I will tend to them live on camera. Because I'm a professional. How's everybody enjoying it? What did we think of this session?
I liked it very much.
It's just getting better and better.
So,
So good. I don't want it to be over. Should we just start again from the beginning after it finishes?
Yeah.
We'll have a watch party and we'll talk in a chat on the side while listening to Frankie read at the side.
Perfect. Perfect.
I think like a director's commentary from Frankie live over an hour or two at some point would be great. Like behind the scenes.
We need to hear what's going through your mind as you read each passage.
Mostly, which voice is this? Which voice is this again? How do I do this voice? Oh god, I don't like watch any of them back anymore these days. Like when we very first started doing it, I would watch like a big load of it back to kind of hear the voices and make sure the quality was all right. Now I'm just like, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. So like I have no idea whether anything is consistent or whether any of the voices are coming out how I've intended them to come out. Nothing. Just they're out in the world.
They are wonderful.
You're a pro now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get the unfiltered Frankie.
When you're confident enough to go, yeah, fuck it, it's fine. That's when you know you've made it.
And confident enough to cry. A combination, like. Oh.
I mean, I do a lot of crying. I'm a very leaky lady.
Crying, Frankie.
On that note, perhaps we should say goodbye to the catch-up crew. Okay, everybody say goodbye. Goodbye to the catch-up crew. Goodbye, we love you.